What do you feel in your body when you hear the term white people?
I feel like a cringe about it. Cringe is a good word.
White, straight, cisgender man is the top of the pile.
So I'm on the top of the pile. It's me.
Can I just propose a toast? Raise a glass if you're racist. To racist.
That was really weird.
Don't deny that you're racist. Try not to be racist, but also don't realize that you're. Until we're willing to talk about these things, healing can't really begin.
My daughter's 4 years old. She's still watching Disney movies and choosing a white princess.
Have you talked to her about that?
All the time.
Is racism inherent to whiteness?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, probably.
Well, yeah.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Did race exist as a reality before?
We made race exist.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. What do you mean? What you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you and less for you.
Am I Racist? In theaters this Friday. Rated PG-13.
Today on the Matt Walsh Show, there's been major outrage this week over an alleged police brutality incident involving an NFL star, but it turns out that the NFL star was entirely in the wrong. We'll talk about that. Also, Taylor Swift has finally given her presidential endorsement. You won't believe who she's supporting. It's a shocking twist. And Donald Trump faced a 3-against-1 match at the debate last night. We'll review the most unfair and rigged presidential debate in American history. All of that and more today on the Matt Walsh Show.
I want to know, am I racist? Am I racist? Why do you judge by the color of our faces? Is racial division just a plan by the matrix? They burn down our cities, then they get called courageous. Instead of condemning the media, give them praises. Oh man, what is the benefit? When the media ruin our images. If you a white male, you get called a white supremacist. If your opinion and the narrative have differences.
Well, last night, Trump and Harris went toe-to-toe on the biggest political stage in the world, but the real battle is just beginning. The DailyWire is right out on the front lines. Now's the time to join us in the fight. For a limited time, get 47% off new annual memberships. Why 47? Well, because that's what the fight's all about. The 47th President of the United States. Use code FIGHT at dailywire.com/subscribe and get 47% off new DailyWire Plus annual memberships. Grand Canyon University is a private Christian university located in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. GCU believes that our Creator has endowed us with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They believe in equal opportunities and that the American dream is driven by purpose. GCU equips you to serve others in ways that promote your flourishing, which will create a ripple effect of transformation for generations to come. Whether you're pursuing a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, Grand Canyon University's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your degree. GCU has over 330 academic programs. As of September 2023, GCU will meet you where you are and provide a path to help you fulfill your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. Find your purpose today at Grand Canyon University, private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. That's gcu.edu. It was just a few months ago that police in Chicago attempted to pull over a man named Dexter Reed for driving with illegally tinted windows. And I talked about this incident on the show at the time when the media was trying to turn Reed into the next George Floyd. As soon as the traffic stop began, Reed began acting suspiciously. He repeatedly refused officers' commands to lower his window so they could see what was going on inside his car. And then he raised the tinted window to completely obstruct the officer's view of the inside of the vehicle. And then, within seconds, Dexter Reed opened fire. Watch.
Do not roll the window up.
Chicago police officers were in the middle of a traffic stop last month
Unlock the doors now.
when they say 26-year-old Dexter Reed, driving a white SUV, did not comply with their commands.
Unlock the doors now.
A civilian review board investigating the incident says Reed fired first.
Shots fired.
Now, police officers train on footage like this all the time. There are hundreds of videos like it all over the internet, and they all tell the same story, which is this. When the police pull somebody over and that person attempts to hide what he's doing, then the situation has just become extremely dangerous. All traffic stops involve some level of risk, but when somebody rolls up a tinted window instead of complying, that risk gets exponentially higher. That's especially true when the suspect has a criminal history. So police have no choice but to respond quickly and decisively and potentially with force because they're in a life-threatening situation. Otherwise, they might get shot and killed before they can even see what's coming. And as I said at the time, there was an attempt to portray Dexter Reed as some kind of BLM martyr, but it fell apart the moment this footage was released because everybody understood why the officers drew their weapons. Everybody understood that Reed had put the officers in fear of their lives even before the shooting started. The entire media-driven narrative that Dexter Reed was an oppressed victim of police brutality fell apart, and nobody ever spoke of it again. But there's always somebody waiting in the wings to claim that mantle of oppression, especially in an election year. And this week, the Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill is going for it, going for the mantle, even though his traffic stop in many ways has a lot of similarities to Dexter Reed's. Tyreek Hill, like Dexter Reed, was pulled over for a lawful reason. In Tyreek Hill's case, he was speeding near the Hard Rock Stadium where the Dolphins play. So that's all caught on camera. And like Dexter Reed, Tyreek Hill also had an existing criminal record at the time of his stop. Although the officers probably weren't aware of that, he had one. In Hill's case, that record included a prior guilty plea for serious offenses, including domestic assault and battery by strangulation. And then, when he was pulled over, Tyreek Hill, like Dexter Reed, refused lawful orders to lower his tinted window. Instead, he started raising the window in clear defiance of the officers. Watch.
Why don't you have your seatbelt on? Why don't you have your seatbelt on? Like what? Why do you have it up? Hey! Keep your window down! Hey, keep your window down. Keep your window down, I'm gonna get you out of the car. As a matter of fact, get out of the car. Give me your ass, Get out of the car. Give me your ass, we'll break that window. Get out of the car. Get out of the car right now. We're not playing this game. Get out. 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 What part of law don't you understand? Hey, Drew, I'm getting arrested, Drew. I'm getting arrested. I ain't do nothing, twin.
Hey, don't park there. Don't park there.
Hey. Hold on, bro. I just had surgery on my knee. Bro. I just had surgery on my knee, bro. I just had surgery in your ears when we go there. Chill, bro.
So instead of complying, Tyreek Hill rolled up a tinted window while the police were trying to talk to him. So they couldn't see what he was doing in the car. They responded aggressively to his belligerence and defiance. And then Tyreek Hill refused to sit on the curb as instructed, saying he just had knee surgery, so he can't sit down. He could play in a professional football game a few hours later and score a touchdown, but he had knee surgery and he can't sit down. I'm delicate. I can play tackle football with professional football players, but I'm too delicate. Please, be careful. So that's just asking too much. So the officer, again, used some force, this time to put him on the curb. Not a lot of force. Not nearly as much force as what you experience when you're playing football in the NFL. The officers also detained one of Hill's teammates, Calais Campbell, after he approached the scene in the middle of the road. And ultimately, the authorities cited Hill for reckless driving, but they didn't arrest him. They also didn't charge him for obstructing an officer, which is a misdemeanor in Florida, punishable by up to a year in prison. Speaking to reporters, Hill claimed he had no idea why he was being placed in handcuffs. Quote, "No idea, it's crazy. No idea. I wasn't disrespectful because my mom didn't raise me that way. Didn't cuss, did none of that. I'm still trying to figure it out. Don't be disrespectful." Of course, the truth is that Hill could have avoided all of this by acting like an adult rather than a spoiled toddler. He knows that. Everybody watching the video knows that. But the media and the left are pretending otherwise. They're completely ignoring the evidence and running with the same narrative we've seen a million times before, even if the facts don't remotely fit. Over on ESPN, for example, they're acting as if Tyreek Hill was just killed. I mean, they're mourning him as if he died by comparing him to a bunch of other BLM martyrs. Watch.
What I don't understand is how a police officer can rip open his door, rip him out of the car, not take him out of the car, rip him out of his car, slam him on the pavement face first, and cuff him, and tell him he got it effing confused. And then, once you got him cuffed, make him sit down on the pavement because you don't want him to stand. The police officers wanted Tyreek Hill beneath them, both literally and figuratively. And that's the kind of crap that black Americans can't stand. And that's why we're so frustrated, because when the country talked about wanting to reckon with race after George Floyd, we still have stuff like this popping up, as if we haven't seen it enough, as if we didn't have to deal with it with Sandra Bland, as if we hadn't have to deal with it with Taryn Crusher, as if we didn't have to deal with it with Walter Scott, as if we didn't have to deal with it with Philando Castile. This keeps coming up. Black Americans being stopped by law enforcement and not knowing if they're going to make it home.
Oh, shut up. Shut up, you clown. He made them sit on the curb. So? What, you think black people are the only ones that have to sit on the curb when they're being detained by the cops? You think that doesn't happen? No, it's just if it happened to anyone else, we wouldn't think you wouldn't think of it that way. Oh, so you want to put me beneath you? No, they're detaining you. And you're a big, huge person, and they don't want you to run away. So they're making you sit down. You choose to make a thing out of that. Now, just to be clear about this, Sandra Bland, Walter Scott, and Philando Castile are all dead. So that's not to relitigate all of those cases, all of which the media lied about to one degree or another, by the way. It's just a fact. So this guy's comparing several dead people to Tyreek Hill, who is not dead. He's very much alive, unharmed, still earning $30 million a year, still a famous celebrity. What happened to Hill is that on Sunday, he endured a minor inconvenience that was entirely attributable to his own actions. This was such a minor inconvenience that he was able to play football in a game afterwards, and he mocked the whole situation with a celebration after he scored a touchdown. That's how traumatized he was. So all of this fake hysteria is intended to obscure an obvious point, which is that Hill, like so many other BLM heroes, did not comply with lawful orders that were given by police officers. He put them in a dangerous situation as a result, because when they can't see you during a traffic stop, they can be killed. It's happened many times. And so he suffered the predictable consequences of that decision. When the outraged ESPN personality says he's frustrated, I'm so frustrated. The country hasn't reckoned with race, he says. What he's really saying is that black people should be able to do whatever they want when the police pull them over. And so if a black person doesn't feel like doing what the cops say, then they shouldn't have to. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit down. And what this clown on ESPN is saying is that if you're black, that should be acceptable. You can't make a black person do what they don't want to do. This is like slavery all over again. They should be able to put police in danger if they want, apparently. Or maybe that's only the case if they're driving expensive cars like Tyreek Hill was. Maybe the law just doesn't apply to football players. That's the position of Tyreek Hill's team, the Miami Dolphins. In a statement, the team said they urged the police department to take swift and strong action against the officers who engaged in such despicable behavior. The team didn't even mention Tyreek Hill's decision to put people in danger by driving recklessly on the way to the stadium in his expensive car. They didn't mention that he disobeyed the officer's commands. They didn't mention that many officers have been shot in the head and killed because they can't see what someone's doing during a traffic stop. They pretend as if officers had no reason whatsoever to treat Hill like a potential threat to their lives. This is the lose-lose situation that cops are in. They're being told that they have to ignore suspects who roll up their tinted windows and just hope that it doesn't turn out to be another Dexter Reed situation. I guess if they pull over a black man, the black man says, nope, rolling up my window. The cops are supposed to say, oh, okay, well, never mind. Didn't mean to bother you. I'm sorry. Never mind. You don't get a ticket because you don't want a ticket. Am I inconveniencing you? Is this, you had somewhere you wanted to go? Oh my gosh, you're a football player. You play a game. You play football. You're really important. Never mind. Speed all you want. We'll go find a white person to give this ticket to instead. I mean, I guess that's what the cops are supposed to say. And certainly if cops do anything to protect themselves, then they're despicable. Meanwhile, the brain trust of former athletes over on FS1 took the melodrama up 10 more notches. So here's some former NFL stars. One of them is LaShawn McCoy on a show hosted by former NFL player Emmanuel Acho. And, these are some of the most oppressed people in America, just so you know. They were paid millions of dollars to play a game. Now they're paid millions of dollars to talk about other people playing a game. But that doesn't make them any less oppressed. You should know. Let's watch.
This is terrible, right? And I'm a good friend of Tyreek Hill. And I'm so mad it happened. But on the other side, I am kind of glad it did happen. You know why? Because you get to see what it feels like to be a black man in America, though, right? The difference is this person, this young man that's getting detained like this is a superstar athlete. So he's going to continue to have his life. If it's somebody else, they might not have their life. They might not have had a chance to go to the Dolphins game. They might have got shot. The problem with this is the way they're handling him, you'd have thought he robbed a bank, he did a murder, he did attempted murder, he did something. For a speeding ticket, you get all this? This is crazy. And we want the police to protect and serve. Is that like protecting? Is that like serving? No. You see this thing. If he wasn't Tyreek Hill, it could have gotten way more serious.
The most frustrating thing about it is we do not feel safe around cops, and that's crazy.
When you say we, break that down.
Black people does not feel safe around cops, and that is what really strikes a chord to me, because we don't want to call them. We don't want to be in certain situations with them. I talk to my kids. You know what I tell them, man? If you ever get into any situation, man, you with your friends or whatever, get to some light. Get around some people, right? If it's some cops around. That's how I'm talking to them. If it's cops around to where you're supposed to be safe and they're supposed to protect you, make sure you're around some people. Get into some light and all that, so people can see what's going on if they want to act up.
Oh, is that what you tell your kids? That's what you tell them? If there are cops around to get to some light, that's all you tell them? Well, then you're a terrible father. You're just a bad father. Have you considered telling them to comply with lawful commands? Have you thought about telling them that? Why don't you tell your kids to simply comply with lawful orders given by officers of the law? Why don't you tell your kids that if they're speeding, they broke the law, the cops have every right to pull them over, and you just take the damn ticket and move on? You got caught. Why don't you tell your kids that? It's like these. Do you really think black people are the only ones who get pulled over? Is that really? They really think that? We're at a point where I think some of these people think that the rest of us don't get. I was driving. I can't remember if I mentioned this. I was on vacation in the summer. This just happened, and I'm driving through upstate New York. I get pulled over I was going less than 10 miles over the limit. Less than 10 miles. And you always think that really they give you 10 miles as kind of like a grace period. So if it's 35, you could get away with 45. You got to get into 40, the 50s really before I was going less than 10 miles over the limit. And I still got pulled over. Cop came over. He's peering in my car and stuff, looking around. Got a bunch of luggage. He's asking me where I'm going, acting very suspicious. Meanwhile, I was barely speeding. It was annoying. I've been driving for 12 hours. Just wanted to get where I was going. But you see, it's not, so this kind of thing happens. And guess what? If that cop had come over, because he's giving me a ticket for going 8 miles an hour, 8 miles over or something, and in the middle of talking, if I had just rolled up the window and said, nope, sorry, guess what he would have done? He would open the door and throw me out of it. That's what he would have done. He would do that to anybody. It didn't happen to me because I'm not a freaking moron who would respond that way. You know why? Because I was speeding. I was. I feel like you could have let it go, but you didn't. Fine, I was speeding. I got to take, if you're giving me a ticket, I'm just going to take, what else can I do but just take the ticket? I could make things a lot worse for myself by being a belligerent, but I'm not going to do that. So why don't you hear these stories? These horror stories? Because I didn't come on the air the next day and say, oh my gosh, I got pulled over. This is what we have to deal with in society. Okay, I wasn't tears in my eyes welling up. This dramatic story of getting pulled over. This is what I have to, I didn't do that. Okay, because I'm a grown man. You take the ticket and move on. So if you don't hear the stories from white people about getting pulled over, is because we're not on the air crying about it. The other thing we're told that, black men are afraid of the cops is what we're told. They're terrified that they're going to be executed on the spot. Tyreek Hill was afraid, allegedly. Well, if that's the case, why are you going out of your way to antagonize them? Why are you doing everything in your power to make your interactions with the police as stressful and contentious as possible? When I see videos like the one with Tyreek Hill or any of the footage of any BLM martyr, I don't see black men who are afraid of the cops. I see black men who completely disregard the cops and act as though they're above the law and impervious to the basic rules and standards of conduct that the rest of us have to live by. If you're afraid for your life while dealing with the cops, why would you roll up a tinted window? How is that going to make you safer? How is that going to make the situation less volatile? You are making it more volatile. You are directly, actively making it into a more volatile situation. But this doesn't occur to these kinds of commentators. Can't blame them for that. They're emotional. In fact, these guys were so emotional that when they came back from commercial break, they were still comforting each other over this. Watch.
What's up, family? We had to bring y'all into the locker room for this one because it is about to get real with this dialogue. Russell Wilson, y'all know what he is. He's a future Hall of Famer. However, hey,
really quick though, because I know we just came off that segment. But this is like real life locker room because it's tough to regroup.
That's a good point.
It's tough to regroup. Like, I'm looking at my dog right now, like, we all thinking, like, dang, man, that just happened. And this is how we really are in the locker room, talking to each other. Like, and this was before a game. You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy because I see everybody's body language, and usually when stuff like this happens, you walk into the locker room, you look at your brother, you like, you good, bro? You see that? You know what I'm saying? It's a tough situation. Not to get you off track,
that's a good point because I was trying to get back on topic for y'all at home. I looked at my dog 2-5 and he wasn't doing his normal joint, so I was like, okay,
you didn't turn on the boombox.
So I had to pivot and truly now we're bringing y'all into the real, not just of a locker room, but the real of our mindset. Like James just hit it on the head. Like sometimes having to transition from a topic like watching your teammate.
What brave warriors! What heroes! My God. They had to overcome the trauma of talking about a football player's briefly unpleasant interaction with the cops. They somehow had to soldier through and find a way to keep talking about football, in spite of the fact that a millionaire was briefly inconvenienced. It's painful, you see. It's painful to think about the minor inconvenience that a millionaire football player experienced. A minor inconvenience of his own making that they're shaken up. They could barely hold it together. Now, for his part, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Mike McDaniel, was even more hysterical than the sports commentators. He appeared to be choking back tears as he said he couldn't imagine what it's like to be as oppressed as Tyreek Hill. Watch.
It's been hard for me not to find myself more upset the more I think about it. And that's because of, my teammates and trying to put myself in that emotion or in that situation that they've described emotionally. And then knowing more than that, I think the thing that me up, honestly, to be quite frank, is knowing that I don't know what that feels like. Okay,
enough of that. I can't even listen to this. Shut up, you dork. I mean, if you listened to that and you had no context, you would assume that someone died. You would assume that something tragic had happened. He's talking about a guy getting a speeding ticket. Okay, he's talking about a multi-millionaire who got a speeding ticket, and he's practically crying about it. 50 years ago, a guy this weepy and emasculated would never be the head coach of a football team. It just wouldn't have been possible for a theater kid like this to get a job like that. But here we are. Mike McDaniel is very triggered. It really messes him up. He doesn't know what it feels like. Really? You don't know what it feels like to get a speeding ticket? Really? You've never experienced that before. He'll never be able to. Well, white people don't get speeding tickets. We don't get them. We never do. But the coach could find out pretty easily. He could start driving his sports car as recklessly as possible around slow-moving traffic. And when he gets pulled over, he could roll up his tinted windows and dare the cops to do something about it. And very quickly, Mike McDaniel will experience something similar to what Tyreek Hill experienced on Sunday. And if that happens, Mike McDaniel would deserve to be forcibly removed from his car and treated like a threat, just like Tyreek Hill was. Predictably, nobody in the corporate press wants to point this out. Instead, they're affirming Tyreek Hill's story of racial grievance at every opportunity. Here's CNN, for example, and watch as they allowed Tyreek Hill to claim, without any pushback, that if he weren't a football player, the police officers would have executed him on the spot instead. Watch.
If you weren't Tyreek Hill, that you feared this could have ended a lot differently. What do you think could have happened?
Yeah, like, so the crazy part about it is I hate talking like this, man, but because I have a kid fan base. But the reality of it is, it's the truth. If I wasn't Tyreek Hill, worst case scenario, we would have had a different article, you know. Tyreek Hill, you know, got shot in front of Hard Rock Stadium, you know, or that's worst case scenario, or Tyreek Hill, you know, put in handcuffs and taken in and booked, you know, but it's crazy that, me and my family had to go through this, so.
You and your family had to go through what? What is your family going through? They had to go through you getting a traffic citation? That's what they're suffering? And the media puts this on the air while there are people suffering we just had a school shooting, recently. Did anyone on ESPN, there was just a school shooting, like the kids were killed. Did anyone on ESPN feel like they couldn't even move on? They couldn't even do their job anymore? Because they're so overcome with emotion? No, that's only if a football player gets a traffic ticket. So try to follow the logic here. According to Hill, the police knew he was a famous NFL player with a very high profile, so they knew they had to be on their best behavior, and that's why they decided not to just shoot him outside. Otherwise, they would have just shot him. They would have just pulled him out and shot him in the head, right? Because that happens all the time. I mean, when I say it happens all the time, it like never ever happens, ever. Okay, but no, it really happens all the time, except for that it never does. And so that's supposedly what the police do to every black person, but they don't do it to NFL players. At the same time, according to Tyreek Hill, these same police officers didn't have any problem risking their entire career just to rough him up on the camera for no reason, allegedly. So they're cautious, but they're also extremely reckless at the same time. That's the explanation that flies on CNN, apparently. But it doesn't make any sense. What makes more sense is that the police did exactly what they were trained to do, which is to treat everyone who behaves like Hill did, regardless of how much money they have, as a potential threat. That's especially true when, like Dexter Reed, they have a criminal record and they start rolling up their tinted window instead of complying. The only way to explain the reaction from the corporate press and the Miami Dolphins is that these people really believe, again, that a black man should be able to do or say literally anything he wants when confronted by cops. Whatever happens will always be the cops' fault no matter what. The point is to absolve, quote unquote, people of color of any blame. But the effect is that they're infantilized. They're treated like children incapable of controlling their emotions, given no incentive to improve your own behavior. Instead, when you treat people like this, you're giving them more incentive to act like Tyreek Hill, with all the entitlement and hysteria that entails. We saw what that approach leads in 2020. It leads to police pulling out of black neighborhoods and fewer people choosing to become police officers. And that in turn leads to a lot more black people dying. Narcissists like Tyreek Hill claim that they're afraid of that outcome. In reality, they're doing everything they can to make sure that it keeps happening. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. Are you still mooching off your parents' cell phone plan, or maybe you're the parent of a 30-year-old child, quote unquote, who refuses to leave the nest? Either way, it's time to cut the cord and embrace some personal responsibility. Enter Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, and 50 gigabytes of high-speed data and a mobile hotspot on America's most dependable 5G network. Right now, Pure Talk isn't just giving you cell service, they're throwing in a dose of sanity, too. When you head over to puretalk.com/Walsh and switch to a qualifying plan, you'll get a free 1-year insider subscription to DailyWire Plus. That's right, unrestricted access to our entire library of movies, series, and documentaries, including Lady Ballers, What is a Woman, Mr. Bertram, Run, Hide, Fight, and more. Plus, you get all our daily shows uncensored and ad-free. Parents, do your adult children a favor. Kick them off the family plan. Kids, prove to your parents that your gender studies degree wasn't a total waste and you could actually budget for a phone bill. You know, I've been telling you to stop overpaying for your cell phone plan for a long time. If you haven't made the switch over to Pure Talk yet, now's the time to do it. Go to puretalk.com/Walsh today, switch to a qualifying plan, and get 1 year free of DailyWire Plus Insider. That's puretalk.com/Walsh. Okay, huge news, biggest news of the year, of the century, of all time, probably. Taylor Swift has made her endorsement, and you're never going to guess who she endorsed. This is a game changer. Total shocker. Here's the New York Times. Taylor Swift, who's one of America's most celebrated pop culture icons and has an enormous following across the world, endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris late Tuesday after Ms. Harris's debate against former President Donald Trump. The endorsement by Ms. Swift, delivered minutes after Ms. Harris and Mr. Trump had stepped off the debate stage in Philadelphia, offers Ms. Harris an unrivaled celebrity backer and a tremendous shot of adrenaline to her campaign, especially with the younger voters she has been trying to attract. Like many of you, I watched the debate tonight, Ms. Swift wrote on Instagram. I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe needs a warrior to champion them. What? I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. What a horribly muddled sentence. She signed her post as childless cat lady, a reference to comments made by Mr. Trump's running mate. Yeah, okay. So she endorsed Kamala Harris. Really, like I said, really surprised. I thought she'd go Trump. If not Trump, I thought maybe she would call for a third-party run from Pat Buchanan, and that's what I was. So I thought maybe that would be, but no, she went with Kamala Harris. So we could be snarky about this. I was just being snarky about it, which is very unlike me. But this kind of thing does matter. All the jokes aside, it does matter. Maybe it shouldn't matter, but it does. It's ridiculous that anybody would vote just because Taylor Swift tells them to. It's maybe ridiculous that anybody would be influenced by her, but they are influenced by her. They shouldn't be, but they are. And if all Taylor Swift does is post this one thing on Instagram, the impact will probably be relatively minimal, although there will still be a major impact. Several months ago, she posted one time encouraging people to register, and immediately there were, I think on the site that she linked to, there were 35,000 new voter registrations just from one post, which of course is a lot. That's enough. If that was all in one state, she could swing a state on her own. So, and that was just a kind of generic call months and months and months before the election for people to register. So even just that one post will have an impact, a favorable one for Kamala Harris, no question about it. If that's all it is, then it's minimized. If she actively campaigns for Kamala, if she performs at a rally, let's say, or anything along those lines, then it will become a bigger impact. Taylor Swift is in many ways like Donald Trump's polar opposite. Trump is popular with men, but generally despised by young women. Taylor Swift is not very popular with men, but is worshipped as a deity by young women. And, the Kamala campaign would like to wield Swift as kind of like a Trump antidote, the anti-Trump. And what they'd most like to do is to have a Taylor Swift concert masquerading as a Kamala rally, so that they can then brag that 100,000 people came to a Kamala rally. They could get as many, essentially, it's a free Taylor Swift concert, that, again, they call a Kamala Harris rally, and they could fill any venue in the world with the worshipful young women who are there to worship at the altar of their deity. And then they can brag that, 100,000 people came to a Kamala Harris rally. They can try to claim that they had the biggest political rally of all time, something like that. Even though, again, it won't really be a rally, it'll be a Taylor Swift concert, but that's what they can do. The question is whether Taylor Swift wants to be that involved. I guess we'll see. But the fact remains that this kind of thing does matter. Taylor Swift has influence. And I don't mean influence in the way that people we call influencers have influence. one of the ways that you know that somebody doesn't have a lot of influence is if their job title is influencer. The real influencers are artists. They are entertainers. They are cultural figures. They have influence, and a lot of it. So what can we do about it? That's really the question. What do we do about the Taylor Swift effect? How do we counteract it? Well, attacking her isn't going to do it. I mean, go ahead and criticize her. Taylor, I've made fun of her. If you do that, fine. It can be fun. So I get it. But you're not going to negate or counteract her impact on the culture that way. That's not going to get the job done. I think maybe everyone understands that. You're not going to be, the people who are enamored by Taylor Swift, you're not going to argue them out of that. You're not going to present some kind of argument and they're going to read it and say, you know what? Yeah, I actually don't. I've thought about it. You're right. I don't like Taylor Swift anymore. That's not going to happen. So that's not a good strategy. Something else that is not a good strategy, and I've tried to make this argument many times before, Republicans cannot mitigate Taylor Swift's influence by trying to parade around their own Hollywood stars and pop culture figures and musicians and so on. This is what they've tried to do, right? They tried to do it at the RNC. And I was critical of it at the RNC. And I was eaten alive for that, as you might recall. People are very, very angry at the thing, my commentary on the RNC. I was right. I'm still right. I was right the whole time. My point is this is just, it's not effective. Okay, because here's why. The Dems have Taylor Swift, the most influential and famous and successful pop culture figure in the world. Okay, their bench, like they've got on the bench Beyonce, and Oprah. They're the warm-up acts for Taylor Swift. And so when you try to respond to that by bringing out a bunch of washed up, irrelevant has-beens, I'm sorry, because that's what we've done, it's just not, it's not going to work. And for Republicans right now, their crowd of celebrities are they're either in the has-been camp or they're the never was camp. So they go, oh yeah, you have Taylor Swift? Well, look at this. We have this guy who hasn't made a hit song since 1995. Checkmate. Checkmate, libs. We got you now. Oh yeah? You have every popular actor in Hollywood? Well, we have this actor who hasn't appeared in a film since a Hallmark film 14 years ago. Now what? Or they go and find just like any random influencer type that's got, a few million followers on Instagram. Any rapper who's done any kind of pro-Trump rap, even if it's someone who has got, 1,000 YouTube subscribers, has zero fan base, they go find somebody like that and say, see, we're relevant. You look at this. Nobody wants to hear it, but it's just not effective. It's not effective. It's only effective in making us look lame and irrelevant, and especially when we're doing that and they're bringing Taylor freaking Swift up on stage. Okay, we've got a YouTube rapper. We've got a YouTube rapper and someone from Instagram and an actor who made one relatively good movie 17 and a half years ago, and like they've got Taylor Swift. It's not a good contrast. And what it does is it handicaps us when we try to dismiss Taylor Swift by saying that celebrities don't matter. Because if celebrities don't matter, then why did we have a bunch of celebrities that nobody cares about at the RNC? Do they matter or not? If their celebrities don't matter, how in the world could our much less famous celebrities matter? It doesn't make any sense. So what is the solution? The solution for now in the short term is to not get into the celebrity tit for tat, because we can't win that. We will lose that every time. We cannot compete. And that's why I think I wish the RNC had been nothing but just straight policy the whole time. Just boring. Make it boring. Fine. Because then you could present yourself as totally unconcerned with celebrity, not desperate. And then at least you have some kind of counter argument when they start bringing up Taylor Swift and Beyonce, and you can say, hey, you guys are doing the celebrity thing. We're not worried about that. We're focused on what really matters to Americans. We're worried about policy. And that's an argument. That's a counter argument. But my point again is that you can't make that counter argument if you are also trying to parade your celebrities around, but your celebrities are all lame, right? Now, in the long term, though, we can't deny that celebrity does matter. Because culture matters, and celebrities are culture makers. They make culture. Now, these days, there are celebrities who don't make culture. We make celebrities out of the Hawk Tuah girl. She's not a culture maker. She doesn't make anything. But the big celebrities, and by the way, can I just say something? The Hawk Tuah girl, if she came out and endorsed Trump, guarantee you there'd be Republicans that want to put her on stage at a rally. Guarantee that would happen. And if someone like me said, you know what, I don't think this is really the right approach, I would get annihilated for that, for doing that. Anyway, the celebrities, there are celebrities who don't make culture, but the big celebrities are big celebrities because they make culture. And that's not going to change. So long term, we do need to get serious about making culture, and making culture means doing more than commenting on it. It means doing more than making political podcasts like the one you're listening to right now. There's a place for commentary. It has some value. I mean, I certainly hope it does anyway, because this is what I do. It's my day job. But we do need to do more than that. We need to make culture, and I know here at the DailyWire, you hear us saying that all the time, like a mantra, but it's not just a mantra, it's true. We have to make entertainment, make art, music, shows, films, because that is why celebrity matters. That's Taylor Swift has influence, not just because she's some random woman with an Instagram page. She has influence because she makes music. And music moves people. Now, it doesn't move me. I think her music is terrible. I'm not moved by it. I can't imagine how anybody could be moved by it. But they are. I mean, they're so moved by her music somehow that she has 1 billion fans. So if you're making culture, you also have the culture makers, so you have the celebrities, and then you have all that. Now, making culture is hard, right? It's hard to do. I've made 2 films. It's difficult, and it's risky, and it's expensive. And when you're on the right, you're at all kinds of disadvantages going in. And you could spend all day whining about it. You got both hands tied behind your back going into trying to do something like this, because you don't have any of the institutional support. You don't get anywhere near the same kind of funding. And then when you go and you create you don't have access to a lot of the same talent. You don't have access to, so you got to go try to find diamonds in the rough out there who somehow have not already been claimed by Hollywood and by the entertainment industry. And you got to go find them, and then you create your thing. And you try to put it out in the world, and you don't have anywhere near the same, avenues for distribution much of the time. You don't have anywhere near the same kind of budget to market whatever it is that you've created. Not even close, right? You're lucky if you can scrounge together a few $1 million to market your product, whatever you've created. Then you're one of the lucky ones. Meanwhile, The music industry, Hollywood, they've got tens of millions, hundreds of millions to spend marketing it. And then they have the whole mainstream media that will amplify whatever they create. So if they make a film, they've got access to every show, everything, go anywhere. They go anywhere to talk about their film. If they have an album, if they have whatever, a show, they've got access to all of those places to go and tell people about it. But if you're a conservative, you don't have access to any of that, almost any of it. So, and all that means that you could go and create something, and there's a chance that it might be bad, because creating things is hard, and you could even be very talented and put all your effort into it, and it turns out bad. Or it could be good, and it flops because of all these disadvantages that you have. And at the end of it, there's no participation trophy, right? Nobody in the audience is saying, well, you tried. A for effort. You spend months and months and millions of dollars making a piece of art that ends up being bad or ends up flopping, and nobody will give you credit for trying, and they shouldn't. Well, maybe they should, but they won't. That's just the reality. All they care about is the final product. So you have to do it and do it well, and in spite of all of the obstacles arrayed against you, you have to find a way in spite of that to have success with it. So that's the challenge. And it's a huge challenge. And it's why, it's largely why conservatives don't do this. Because they look at all that and they say, I don't even know where to start. Forget it. And it's a lot easier, and there's easier money to be made, frankly. And just say, well, I'll just comment on it. I don't need to make my own stuff. I'll comment on the stuff the culture is making, and I can eke out not even eke out, I can have a nice living, and I can kind of coast along. And so I get all that. But if we want this to change, right? If we want our own Taylor Swift, who can endorse our own presidential candidates one day, because it's not going to be Taylor Swift. They got her. But you want your own. You don't do that by finding some random person who nobody cares about and just insisting that this is our Taylor Swift, because it's not. If you want that, then you got to create culture, and we got to cultivate talent and support them, right? While at the same time, this is kind of the catch-22, because when people on our side do try to make culture and create things, we also have to hold ourselves to a high standard. So really, it's not an A for effort. It's like, okay, I want people on our side to make culture. I want you to go out and create entertainment, music, shows, films, art, do it. But if it's bad, we're going to tell you. Because this is not how we reclaim the culture, by creating our own and telling ourselves it's good when it isn't. So you got to do it, and you got to do it well. That's the strategy. And, if we got serious about it, then when I say it's a long-term strategy, it doesn't have to be like 100 years from now. We have our own Taylor Swift, that can endorse. It doesn't have to be 100 years from now. It could happen a lot sooner than you might think. But that's the answer. All right. Well, that was one headline. That was one headline in the 5 headlines. I got other stuff here, but I haven't even talked about the debate yet. It's funny. The left loves to lecture us about public health, but they seem awfully quiet about the surge of disease flooding across our open borders. Measles, TB, meningitis, hepatitis, all making a comeback thanks to our brilliant immigration policies. That's why I've stocked my home with the medical emergency kit from the Wellness Company. And let me tell you, this isn't some flimsy box of brand Band-Aids and antiseptic wipes. This is the real deal, a mini urgent care center for your home. It's packed with essentials and often hard-to-get medications like amoxicillin, Z-Pak, and yes, even the media's favorite boogeyman, ivermectin, with 8 doctor-prescribed medications and a guidebook covering over 30 illnesses. You'll be ready for everything from COVID, strep throat, pneumonia, bronchitis, tick bites, UTIs, and more. No doctor visit, no pharmacy lines, and no copay. Every American household should have at least one medical emergency kit. It's not just about preparedness. It's about independence from a medical system that's becoming increasingly unreliable. Go to urgentcarekit.com/Walsh, answer a few questions, and they'll ship it right to your door. Use promo code Walsh to get $45 off right now. That's urgentcarekit.com/Walsh and enter promo code Walsh, urgentcarekit.com/Walsh. We are 2 days away from my new movie, Am I Racist, in theaters nationwide. As of the latest count, Am I Racist will open in over 1,500 theaters this Friday, with more screens being added every day. We gave some lucky fans across the country a chance to see it early, and here's what they have to say. Quoting now, "Everyone needs to see this film. Hilarious, intelligent, and insightful. It's one of the best things DailyWire has done. Get ready for the comedy that hilariously exposes the left's shameless race hustling. Am I Racist? Only in theaters Friday. Head to amiracist.com for tickets. And also showtimes near you. That's amiracist.com. Well, unlike every other political podcast today, I have a saved discussion of the debate for the very end of the show, and that's mainly because the debate was, in my opinion, not terribly interesting. In fairness, presidential debates are almost always boring. The last debate against Joe Biden was the exception, because watching the incumbent president decay live on camera is many things: shocking, pathetic, horrifying, hilarious at times, but not boring. This time around, Trump did not have the advantage of debating an opponent who had lost his mind. Instead, he was debating one who never really had much of a mind to begin with. And this worked to Trump's advantage early on, as he came out strong, hitting Kamala on her record and her habit of flip-flopping on every position she's ever had. And that set him up for one of the best lines of the night. Watch.
And policies like they have, I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it.
So it was a good line. And the thing about Trump's best lines is that they never seem scripted. It didn't appear that Trump came into the debate planning to make a quip about sending Kamala a MAGA hat. Maybe he did have it planned, but he delivers it naturally with impeccable comedic timing. And unlike Kamala, who can never be accused of doing or saying anything naturally, Trump had another great line when talking about Kamala's platform, or lack thereof. Watch.
To know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you, because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. Just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
So another very funny line, well delivered. But Trump's very best moment, in my opinion, was not funny at all. In fact, his best moment, when the topic turned to abortion, in that moment, he did the thing that I've been begging Republican politicians to do for years. You've probably heard me on this show many times urging Republicans and urging Trump to turn to their Democrat opponents and demand that they answer the questions that the media will never ask them. And Trump did exactly that here.
Will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you
because
veto?
Under Roe v. Wade,
answer the question. Would you veto?
You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
So that's all you have to do. You know, as I've been ranting forever on this show, and before I had the show, Democrats want to keep the abortion conversation revolving around the extreme cases. They want to talk about rape, incest, alleged life of the mother situations where abortion is allegedly medically necessary, even though abortion is actually never medically necessary. But these cases account for fewer than 1% of all abortions. The more we allow the debate to focus on the 1% of cases, the more we allow Democrats off the hook. So Democrats demand that Republicans deal with all of the intricacies and nuances and fine distinctions. Meanwhile, Democrats never want to grapple with abortion in even the broadest terms. They don't want to answer even the most basic questions about where they draw the line. Yes, they think it's important that rape victims can get abortions. That's been established. Now, putting the rape cases aside, what about every other case? Where do they draw the line with those? Do they draw a line? Is there any kind of abortion at any stage of pregnancy that they would object to? Do they think it's okay to kill fully developed infants in the womb who would be viable outside the womb? Do they think it's okay to kill a baby who could just as well be delivered healthy and alive and given up for adoption? Is abortion an acceptable and morally permissible alternative to adoption? The Democratic answer to these questions, of course, is yes. They believe it's perfectly acceptable to kill a baby at any point in the womb, no matter how healthy or viable the developed child or developed that child is. They absolutely favor killing fully developed infant children, but they don't want to admit that out loud. You have to put them on the spot, which for a few brief seconds there, Trump did, and I think it was his best moment. Unfortunately, things took a bit of a turn shortly after that. Trump, it seemed to me, came out focused and on point. Kamala came out nervous and shaky, her voice sounding even whinier than usual. But about midway through, there was a shift. Kamala laid the trap that her advisors had planned. She dangled out the bait. And sadly, Trump went for it. Watch.
And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success.
So that was it. That was the what they had planned for Trump. Kamala said that Trump's rallies are boring, and for Trump, that is a dagger straight to the heart. Hits him in a spot where he's the most sensitive, and he got angry and responded with a rambling, unfocused, and defensive answer. Now, to this moment in the debate, he was on the attack. He was bringing everything back to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, and their record. He was bringing everything back to that, and. But this is where he went on defense. And from that point on, seemed to me he never quite recovered. Now, it's obvious, look, Monday morning quarterback and all that, hindsight is 20/20, but it is obvious what he should have said. He should have said, look, we're here to discuss the most important issues facing our country. American families are suffering. And yet Kamala Harris is wasting our time talking about the entertainment quality of my rallies. I don't care if she thinks my rallies are boring. This is not an issue that matters to the people of this nation. It's obvious why she doesn't want to talk about those issues, because all you have to do is look at her record. And that's the answer, and it's an easy answer. And by handling it that way, you pivot back to the Biden-Harris record, and you make her look silly and small for bringing up the subject to begin with. That's the risk, right, for the bait. And she baited Trump again and again in the debate after that. similar kinds of like little needling him in there and on these kinds of issues. But the risk on their side when they try to bait Trump with this stuff is that if he doesn't take the bait, they look ridiculous. So she would have looked ridiculous for bringing up the fact that Trump's rallies are boring. She would have looked ridiculous if he had not taken the bait. But he did. And through most of the debate after that, he was defensive and unfocused. In fact, again, Kamala would bait Trump in similar ways several times more throughout the night, and he took the bait every single time. It was frustrating to watch. Yet, that was not the story of the night. The story was not Trump, and it wasn't Kamala. Instead, it was Kamala's tag team partners, who are the Moderators. Now, we knew that Trump would be in a 3-on-1 cage match against Kamala and her campaign surrogates disguised as debate moderators. What we didn't know, and many of us didn't expect, is that they would be so blatant about it. David Muir and Lindsay Davis of ABC News did not even feign objectivity. Rather, they ganged up on Trump, argued with him, and fact-checked him on the spot several times. Kamala, meanwhile, was allowed to lie and distort the facts with reckless abandon, never suffering a fact-check or even a follow-up. DailyWire put together a montage that summarizes the whole night. So we'll see here Kamala lying and not being fact-checked, and then Trump getting fact-checked repeatedly. Watch.
What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals.
If Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages.
Migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice President Harris,
the FBI defrauded.
Honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
no
Republican.
Judge looked at it
and said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread
standing.
fraud.
That's the other thing.
There was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
So there you have Kamala lying about Trump repeatedly with no fact checks. Meanwhile, Trump was fact checked, even when his statements were completely true. It was a despicable and shameful performance by the media. But they'll feel no shame for it. After all, these people believe, or have told themselves anyway, that they are the vanguards protecting us from a man who seeks to end our democracy and usher in 1,000 years of tyranny. They'll do or say whatever is necessary to prevent that. And it's for our own good. You know, that's how they see it. Journalistic ethics, objectivity, truth, all of these things are expendable. They must be thrown out the window, and they have been in order to stop Trump. Of course, the irony is that their efforts to sabotage Trump, once again, probably had the opposite effect. Thanks to the embarrassing performance by the moderators, the story of the night is their embarrassing performance. It was not Trump's strongest showing, but it was perhaps the media's most reprehensible showing, which becomes the only significant takeaway from the event. Kamala did not win. Trump didn't win. But the media lost, and lost whatever meager shreds of credibility they may have still had in the minds of the most naive among us. And a loss for the media is a win for Trump by default. And that is why, after last night, the ABC moderators and the entire corporate media complex are all today canceled. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Godspeed.
Republican Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey. If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gon' say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. What you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you in this field. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of
White.
folks.
White.
Trash.
White supremacy. White woman. White boy.
Is there a black person around? There's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
Say I'm racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Matt.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gon' say you racist.
Buy your tickets now. In theaters September 13th. Rated PG-13.